Hello, everybody. Welcome to the PiesNation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. My name is Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode 19 of Season 5, or episode 132, if you're counting from the beginning. We had our Warriors over the Dogs, but we still managed to prevail at Marvel Stadium, winning by 12 points to keep our charge towards top spot intact. Today, we talk through that return to Friday night football and the victory that we had over the Western Bulldogs. We discuss what our finals forward line might look like on a big edition of AskPiesNation, talk more VFL and speak to our next guest, the crowd competition winner. It's a studio of 3 today. It's got Jack Dugan, it's got Marcus Callahan in there. Boys, great to come away from Friday with a win, even at times where it looked pretty certain that we might not find a way to get over the top. Nonetheless, it's what we've been so good at, finding a way to get on top, and we get that win to stay on top of the ladder.
Yeah, we did, Nico. Haven't had the best third terms this year, but strangely enough in this game, the third term was our best, the old premiership quarter. So, yeah, found a different way to win against the Dogs. Very, very nervous at half-time. We're just speaking off air how eerily similar it looked to the Bulldogs game last year. They were sort of picking us apart a little bit there, which no doubt we'll dissect, but again, found a new way to win and walk away with the 4 points. Very happy, Marcus.
Game of the round, Nico.
Yeah?
They were saying before they bounced the ball, and I reckon it probably was, and it just shows why we shouldn't be playing on Sunday afternoon.
Exactly.
To your point about Friday night football, that was wonderful, and nothing better than when your team gets the win and you can go into your weekend very pleased rather than very salty. And to your point there, Jack, I was thinking at half time, how are we going to change this around? Like, what is going to shift? Because their forwards are on fire in the first half. And sure enough, we were able to wrestle control late in that second term and propel that forward to another mature win, boys. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it started to feel like the Bulldogs game from last year, didn't it, guys? Because they kicked the first 3 of the match and you sort of felt like, oh no, we don't have any answers here. Jamara was on fire. We had Aaron Norton leaping high, Cody Waitman kicking goals. It wasn't looking good early, but as we mentioned, we just clawed our way back to the remainder of the first half, and then, as we said, that third quarter, just scintillating stuff once again to get us over the line.
Yeah, I feel like that Bulldogs midfield always has picked us apart, like right back to even 2015. They've always just had that really happy handball game, and they get out quite good, but they just seem to transition the ball far too easily for mine in that first half. So I don't know if that was a bit of a structural breakdown just across the ground. I don't think it was pinpointed to sort of forwards, midfields, or defenders, but yeah, just everyone maybe slightly half a step off, and the Bulldogs just and they're a top 8 side. They'll secure themselves a final spot, and deservedly so, because they are a pretty good side. But yeah, interesting one to pick apart. Just always seem to just bloody get it out there so easy. I don't know how they do it, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll go through a deeper analysis onto why that was the case throughout the game. But let's start, as we always do, with the pie that caught your eye. Jack, let's go.
Well, Nico, despite what each week the result yields, I do try not to go for the obvious pie that caught my eye, but I really just can't go past Nick Dacos this week, boys. 2 goals from the top shelf at crucial times in the game to go along with his 29 disposals, 11 clearances and 6 score involvements. He just about won the game on his own and was one of the biggest stand-ups, I thought, after half-time, where again despite sort of being only a goal down, we really needed someone to stand up and take a hold of the game in the second half. I don't know what the odds are for the Brownlow as we speak, but I know he's one of the favourites. If he stays in the midfield, which we all think he will for now, those odds right now will be the longest you'll get for 10 years. Touch wood, he stays fit. There's no surprise how highly we've been singing his praises throughout this year on the pod, but I think his critics have always said that one of the few areas that he's fall short in, that he doesn't really go after his own ball, gets a lot of uncontested bruise-free kicks, etc. And he's just quelling that now. We've thrown him into the midfield, and Fly said a few weeks ago that they want him to be an inside midfielder, and even I was a little bit nervous about that, because, we've seen him come off a half-back playing that sort of bruise-free footy, and the inside midfield. That's a massive jump from going and playing that quarterback role, I think Marcus has described it as. But we've thrown him in there. Gold Coast last week, that was a massive tick. But this week against a classy Bulldogs midfield, it was impressive to watch. It looked as tough as anyone out there. And he was the match winner after half time. Those 2 goals were immense, and he was just seemed to be everywhere. And not only is his field kicking and goal kicking important, but I feel like he gets more of his teammates involved as well. So, yeah, can't sing his praises high enough. So
Lovely monologue there, Jack. That was great.
Keep going.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Stop.
we absolutely can. Can I ask you, we don't like to get a big head here, but we're going to ask the question. Is this the greatest individual season you've ever seen from any player across the competition in your time watching footy?
In black and white stripes or across the comp?
Any time.
God, that's a massive call to come up with, Nico. Certainly in black and white stripes. I mean, maybe a Dane Swan during his Brownlow season is one that comes to mind of an absolutely consistently outstanding season, like every week, 30 plus couple of goals from a midfielder. And we know that Brownlow is a midfielder's medal. I don't know if I can actually give you another season from another player that directly compares that was as good, Nick. But I don't need to, because all that matters is the now, and that is the fact that Nick Dacos is playing absolutely out of his skin.
just the improvement as well, as I said. Like, we've all seen how good he is off half-back, and if he played the rest of his career as a half-back, that would be absolutely fine by me. And then 20 years old into a midfielder and being told that he's an inside mid and he needs to go win his own footy and to do it as well. Just, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It is. I mean, you go through the statistics to demonstrate why he's not this outside midfield only who's getting better disposals because his other teammates are putting... He's getting first access to the footy, and it's only because he works so hard that he creates 1-2 options. He consistently puts himself in the best position, and it's just an absolute joy to watch. I mean, I could go on as well, Jacko, about just how good he was on the weekend, because you have to marvel. And I mean, it was at Marvel as well, so that's just another feather in his cap to show that it's not just the big MCG, where he can do it. But yeah, that... The way he took the game by the scruff of his neck in the third term, it's a captain-like performance in your second season. I mean, what more can we say, Nico?
There is nothing else to say. You boys have summed it up perfectly. He's just next level, out of this world. What's another pie that caught your eye, Marcus, apart from the legend Nick Dacos?
A couple of funny ones. The first one, I was going to go with Caleb Poulter, of course, because he
yes,
elected to run in the direction of our goals there, Jack, which is generally not what you want to do when you come up against your old foe. Anyway, he won't be living that one down for a while. But the other pie that caught my eye was Nick's dad, Peter Dacos, after he kicked that goal in the stands. I mean, it warms the heart to see that sort of vision where Peter Dacos is just there to see his boys. And I mean, Josh kicked a pretty handy goal in that third term as well, just off one foot there, Jack.
Very Josh Dacos like that goal. I feel like he kicks a lot of them like that. He just doesn't go back. He just turns around, bang, knows where they are, and they're just elite. We could do a whole podcast about just the Dacos boys.
No, look, it'd be remiss of us not to get excited about the whole Dacos vibe at the moment, because it's literally propelling the club forward.
Well, on Josh Dacos, was watching First Crack last night, and did you know that Nick and Josh have the most possession combinations in the whole competition? So they will always... So we joke about how they always like to look each other on the field. Well, it's actually shown in the statistics just how common they like to give the ball to each other. It's phenomenal. But David King's other point was about Josh Dacos' time in the midfield and whether we could see him potentially on the ball at times, because he's number one in the competition for winning centre bounces that he attends, and that's across the whole competition again. So he's got an ability to find the football. We've seen that in his times during the wing and potentially even at half forward. So could a move to the midfield and in the guts a little bit more, try work better for his development in the future?
Well, I think the health of our midfield is proving that he can't actually slot in due to the heavy rotations already required. They brought out some stats during the telecast of Josh Dacos' stats as a wingman, as a genuine wingman, and we know how midfielders end up on the wing for All-Australian selection. But right now, you literally can't go past him across the board. He's, up there for disposals, ball use, score involvements, you name it. So I think that it would be nice to see him go through the guts a little bit more. I think I called for that at the start of the season if we needed it. But now with DeGoey coming back, and we'll get to him shortly, we look like a very complete midfield.
Yeah, there's a lot of combos running through there as well, right throughout the game, Nico, that Josh isn't included in, and there's at least 3 or 4 that I can remember from Friday night, and pick your one and what's the best one, because they all work so well and for so many different reasons. So yeah, it's a good problem to have.
Certainly. So Peter and Caleb, they were the pies that caught your eye?
Yes, correct.
Beautiful, lovely. All right, pie that caught my eye was Jamie Elliott. because in the first half he seemed to be the only source of goals that we were ever going to get. And he has played some brilliant football. We kicked 10 goals in the first 11 games of the season. He's kicked 11 in his last 3 weeks. He's really started to find a new lease in that forward line since coming back from a bit of a break. 4 goals, 3 of those coming in the first half, and we really needed them, like I said. 7 marks, all of them inside 50. So and we'll get to the forward line structure later in the show, but for a lot of tall stocks down there, it was great that we were lowering the eyes a bit and finding him when required, and he also had 7 score involvements to go with his 4 goals. So he's playing, again, we mentioned last week about him being a potential player that was going to be squeezed out of this side just because of how impressive the talent was coming into the team, but he has proven over the last 3 weeks or so that he is certainly an important cog to this 22.
No doubt, and I think if we think about the first half, I was a bit worried about no forward. There's no checkers, so there's no forward really leading up at the ball, and this was commented on as well during the telecast that Coxie and Billy Frampton, they were just learning how to work together in that forward line. Not their fault, but it was all out of sync, and then Jamie Elliott was able to get on the end of a few, and that really started to propel us deep in that second quarter for a big second half.
His forward craft really stood out in that first half, didn't it? You mentioned with Cox and Frampton and just their positioning or their ability to get to the right spots, it just wasn't showing. But to have someone like Elliott who knows exactly the right spots to lead to or which space that he needs clear so he can go and present himself with the best opportunity. Yeah, I thought it stuck out so clear.
Yeah, it's good to see that come back into his game as well, Nico, because I think a few Collingwood supporters not calling for his head, but wondering if maybe his best footy was past him in the first half of the year. I think Marcus touched on it last week about how that shoulder injury probably provided a good chance for a bit of a refresh and a reset button for Jamie. And, you know, that Jamie's footy best looks like how you just described, Nico, leading up to the ball, taking marks at the highest point. So, yeah, good to see he's rejuvenated and ready to go, and yeah, it's good.
Let's get to the positives of Friday night and what took place. The first one we have to talk about, we've gone 5 minutes on Dacos, but we've got to go 5 minutes on Scott Pendlebury breaking the all-time disposals record in the competition. Fantastic to see the crowd get up on their feet when he got that. Well, first the 13th disposal when everyone thought that he had broken it, and then the disposal a moment later that got him over the line. Awesome to see as I said, the standing ovation across all of Marvel Stadium for him to break that record. Just another accolade to add to his illustrious career, Marcus.
Yeah, it's rare times to be a Collingwood supporter when these sorts of records are being broken. Nick Dacos on the rise, seeing his old man in the it's really pie in the sky sort of stuff, and you've got to sit back and enjoy it when your team's on the top of the ladder, because these seasons don't happen every single year, as we know. But yeah, he's just an absolute pleasure to watch once again. And I don't know if he was getting a few cheapies closer to the. When
he was called for it a lot more than I thought he usually
knew he
was.
might be very close there, Jack. But what an absolute pleasure to watch him from touch one. I think his first possession was a goal, and Nathan Buckley kicked it to him for his. He was the first disposal club back when he donned the number 16, and the fact that he's now gone through and prepared himself so well for such a long time, been so consistent with all of the disposals he's had as well. I think that's the big thing that really stands out for me. He didn't take a time to sort of work his way into the league. It was very much like a Joel Selwood type. You knew what you're getting basically from his first or second season. So an absolute pleasure once again. And I think he's probably enjoying having the relinquish the captaincy there, Jacko, just to enjoy maybe these moments a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely has. I still find it amazing that he's not spoken about more often in the same sentence as your Joel Selwoods, your Gary Abletts, even, you know, players that are still playing like Dustin Martin, because he'll go down as one of the game's great competitors, not just one of Collingwood's great of all time. He'll be a AFL greatest of all time. So, yeah, I really think the love needs to come for Scott Pendlebury. It's good to see him get records like this because, you know, everyone takes notice.
Yeah, certainly. And it was great to get that recognition across not just the club, but I guess the whole competition as well, really, you know, understanding what this record means.
If we compare it to LeBron James getting the all-time points scoring record recently in the NBA, Nico, is this an equivalent accolade, do you think, in terms of most leagues?
Interesting question. Yeah, I didn't
you were
think...
Jordan or LeBron there, Marcus?
This is not Ball Magnus podcast, so let's just keep it to the footy, mate.
Didn't think of it like that, but it is a fair point because I don't know if it's at the exact same caliber of it. Nonetheless, it doesn't take away from the importance of what this brings, because I know that disposals had only been recorded for the last, I guess, 40 or 50 years, but it's hard to... You look at the names that he had beaten to get to this record, Robert and Brent Harveys, who have played for
top
long
tier.
time.
Yeah.
Quality players, Gary Ablett Jr., the likes, who have been around and have been able to consistently deliver. So to see Pendles in that category, who knows if someone's going to come around and beat that disposal record, because sure, there's a lot of players right now that are happy to get 30, 40 touches a week, but to do it as long and as successful as he has for such an amazing period of time is just unheard of.
And I mean, it's only in recent memory that Buddy Franklin kicks 1,000 goals and is all of a sudden, so guys like Pendles and Buddy, with the way the game has changed and the speed of the game, and experts saying that these sort of records would be very, very, very difficult to break them or see those milestones made. It's a special time to be a footy fan.
Yeah, so, absolutely. He's a true professional, Pendles, as well.
Yeah, so hopefully we have him for another 100, 200 games. That'd be nice. And we can just, enjoy his company. Another person that was outstanding on Friday night was Isaac Quainer, and we brought up the All-Australian conversation a couple of weeks ago, and there was a bit, he's probably around that mark, but surely after the last fortnight now, he has to be in the best 6 defenders in the comp. 27 touches at 89% disposal efficiency, 13 marks, 8 of them intercept marks, had 10 intercept possessions in total, still had 4 score involvements 4 score involvements, 354 metres gained. The man's playing at another level right now, and he is just having the ball on a string. And if it wasn't for the incredible feats of Nick Dacos, I think we'd be talking about Isaac Quainer in such a higher ilk right now.
Yeah, and what I'm loving about his game is obviously the intercept marking has come out of nowhere. But one thing I've noticed about him is that Quainer, Josh Dacos, Nick Dacos, Johnny Noble, when the opposition kicks it behind, they move the ball quickly, even if it's that quick kick to the D50. They're not just hanging around with it. They're looking to create. And I think that was, as a spectator, one of the most brilliant things about the weekend's match. And guys like Quainer are just constantly looking to go. I think he's up maybe the top player for sprints in the league, so he's always looking to move the ball forward, and he's breaking lines now as well, and he's just such an impressive athlete as well as a great distributor of the footy, so he goes from strength to strength. The interesting part about his game in terms of whether he gets a nod for All-Australian when they review the season's performance is Waitman kicks a bunch of goals, but you don't really notice them at the same time. He gets a couple early, but Quainer really inserts himself into the game as it wears on. So on paper, it looks like Waitman, it was like maybe even, but if you watch the match, it's really Quainer dominated. It was from those rebound impacts that's the case.
Talk about his maturity. There's times in his career where he gets a couple kicked on him early and it brings down his confidence, and you don't see him burst and be the player we've seen recently. He doesn't get fazed by it anymore. He can trust his own game. He can trust the way that Collingwood are intending to play even in those moments, and he turns things around and becomes a big contributor why we were able to win games.
And he's still so good at those 1%ers as well, I feel like, as well as the intercept marking and the distribution and all of that. He's still, how many times do you see him close down a contest that he's got absolutely no right to be in just because of his power and his leg speed? So, yeah, pleasure to watch IQ go about his work every week.
A couple of other players I wanted to mention. You put Crispy on the table a little bit last week. Jack, he was able to, must have heard you somewhere, because he ended up with 26 touches, 507 metres gained, and went at 81% disposal efficiency. A much improved game from Crispy, which is what we all wanted to see regardless of some of the comments that were made. I think maybe that mix between the halfback and the midfield is still trying to be tweaked a little bit, but nonetheless, it looks as though that the midfield is where he needs to be at times.
Yeah, interesting one, because I feel like he probably played Maynard's role at times throughout the game, and I wonder if he had a role that allowed him to accumulate a bit more rather than having to play a defensive role on a midfielder or an outside player. But how good was it to see him just take that run? I think it was in the third term. He just backed his speed in and went through the guts, took a bounce, and I can't remember whether we scored off it, but yeah, then there was Markov and DeGoey, and it's just all these players streaming forward. That's when Collingwood's at their best, and I think we need to spend some time about that risk-taking behaviour, Nico, that we didn't shy away of and stuck to our guns, and it got us over the line. It was huge.
Yeah, nothing further to add, Nico, apart from that was a terrible call and it aged like some milk. So, yeah, no, Crispy was elite and seemed to slot into, as Marcus said, Maynard's role quite perfectly as that left footer off half back. And, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one when Maynard comes back in. how much time Crispy can spend back there. I think with Nick Dacos being so good in the midfield, I think they can almost just swap back over, and maybe Jack Chris could go back to a half-back flank. I'm not too sure, but yeah, no, it's good response from Crispy. Clearly listening to the podcast, Nico.
You mentioned risk-taking, Marcus, and something we've always been keen to look at the end of games is the statistical count for clearances. Now, we lost the clearances by 3 on Friday night, yet we outscored them in that source by 34 points. Now, yes, there's obviously ways you can improve that clearance work, and it's definitely been a lot more improved than it was last year, where we were getting pummeled, not just in the numbers, but the scores that came from it. But this year we're turning it around where that's fine, you can go and win the clearance, but we're going to win that ball back and we're going to turn it around just like that. And as a result, we've been able to make the most of the opportunities we had from those stoppages at play. I think we're number 1 in the comp for scores from stoppages, and it showed again on Friday night that we just have that ability. So yes, there's some risk-taking involved in all of that, of course, but it just goes to show that when you give us that opportunity and the pressure's high and the stakes are on, we just really find a way to get that ball moving forward.
No doubt, and I think the fact that we didn't shy away from it, coming back to an earlier point made, the first half we were trying to get our hands on the ball, but the Dogs were making us think about them. That's what really struck it to me, with them getting the ball forward quickly, and their forwards really were dominating our defenders. And to be honest, maybe less so Norton and Waitman, but Jamari Ugle-Hagan had an enormous second half.
Could have really torn us apart if you had a kick straight.
No doubt. I mean, 13 points the margin. It could have been a very different scoreline had they done better work earlier on. But I don't know if it was the message at half time, or if we just finally clicked into gear once Dakes took over, or what it was, but we didn't succumb to our game style, and the Dogs were really trying. It was throwing fire at fire. It was who's going to make the biggest flame to get this thing over the line, and it was us. So just wonderful to see us play on a fast deck, and you can't win games at Marvel playing slow footy. It just doesn't work. The other team will hurt you, and we know that the Dogs probably play that ground better than anyone. So to come away with the win in the fashion that we did, yes, we let them into the game probably a little bit too much late on, Jacko, but our game style prevailed, and then we were able to shut it down.
Yeah, we did enough, didn't we, in that third term, and yeah, we stuck to our guns, and yeah, it was enough to get the job done in the end, which is really impressive. Still, yeah, don't appreciate the heart attack right at the end there, Nico, but that's okay. Yeah, no, I felt as though our midfield in that first half, like, there was a few times where I thought we were a beast to a honeypot, if that made sense. It seemed as though there was 3 of us around the ball that bobbled out to a 4 Bulldogs blokes running past. And, from there in AFL footy, you may as well just mark down a goal, because most good sides are going to be able to punish you from that. So, and as I said before, the Bulldogs are a pretty good side. So.
Speaking of the midfield, Jordan Ngoe's return match, of course, from suspension, finished with 23 touches and a goal. What do we make of his comeback? Obviously, always going to be a little bit slow when you've missed 5 weeks if you count the bye and everything else that came with it. I think he slowly got his way into the game, but once we were starting to fire in that third term, that's when he really got involved and was starting to get in sync with some of our other midfielders.
Yeah, Libba was a bit stiff with that holding the ball to kick off the third term, I thought, boys. And Ngoe kick-started that second half with a lovely snap around the corner. He wasn't there as much as we might like him for impact in the first half, but came alive in the second. And when it wasn't him winning the footy, he was getting a handball from the likes of Dacos and Mitchell and just running forward with power, hitting up targets. I think he hit Billy Frampton maybe in the third term, and one of his kicks inside 50, Ash Johnson runs on with a nice crumb and kicks it straight through into the Collingwood cheer squad. So he had enormous impact, and 23 and a goal for Ngoe doesn't seem like a huge game, but once again, it was what he did with his touches when he got them that was probably most impressive.
Yeah, felt as though Jordan Ngoe's game was very much representative of our game as a whole in terms of the timeline of when he got himself involved and whatnot. Not saying he's a downhill skier by any stretch but just how it played out. So probably, as you said, Nico, a bit thumbly in the first half, 3 weeks off, not a lot of footy in that time. So, yeah, good to see Geordie back, and hopefully can build into a long September for the Pies.
No headlines for Ngoe as well, coming back into the team. So just all very quiet.
Thank goodness.
Stay on the pitch. And
that's what we like to hear.
We're happy.
we mentioned before about Jamie Elliott in the forward line. I want to get your thoughts on the forward line structure. Now, this is a topic we'll bring up on AskPiesNation. We've got a lot of big comments and some suggestions from the crowd, which is great. But wanted to get your thoughts on how it all worked out, because it looked as though we wanted to try Billy Frampton up forward. We had Coxie in there, of course, with Mychek going out of the team. It threw a few things out of place. Had a few different players running around there. Cameron at times trying to drift up forward and play a role. It didn't really seem to work. There were so many times where it seemed as though Cox and Frampton either weren't moving or leading to spots, or they were going to the same spot, and they weren't able to really have an influence going inside 50. So it was pretty evident in that first term. I think we had quite a few inside 50s, 14 or 15 at least, yet we weren't able to get any scores from it as a result, and we had to rely on Jamie Elliott to kick goals to get us moving. You add Ash Johnson into that mix, who, again, kicked 3 majors, yet one of those was a free, one of those was from the goal square. What do we make of that structure on Friday night and how that looks going forward?
Yeah, it's really hard to get a read, as we always say, after one game. I think that it was almost like we had 2 rucks as our forwards, our key pillars in the forward line. So I don't think it'll happen again with Checkers expected to come back into the team this week. No, it didn't work. And yes, our midfielders took control in the second half to get a bit of a score on. And then once we had that momentum, Billy Frampton and Ash Johnson able to kick goals in that third term, which was great. But it's obviously not the first choice for Fly McRae. I don't think he would potentially go from Kruger if he was fit and firing to come back into the team. I think he still plays Frampton instead, based on his versatility. But at the end of the day, it was probably how we changed our game style and our mids, as I say, taking over and allowing our entries to get deeper into the forward line and a bit more slingshot footy rather than trying to look for that hit-up lead. Thankfully, Jamie Elliott was able to provide that, though.
Yeah, I found it interesting, Nico, how many times not only did we see Cox and Frampton going for the same ball, but Cox, Frampton and Cameron going for the same ball. Now, one of them's got to try and outmark 2 of their tallest teammates, plus their 3 opponents that they're bringing along with them as well. So, yeah, one thing that was just probably never going to work. Ball got to ground a fair bit, which is maybe a positive from that. But yeah, in terms of the big boys taking big clunks, I just don't think that's how it's going to work. And I think Checkers plays a massive role in that because he's a little bit quicker, maybe can drag his man out of a contest like that. But yeah, interesting one. Looking forward to the AskPiesNation chat as well, because the Dan McStay conundrum, I'm going to call it, is an interesting one. Where does he fit? What's his role within that system?
You mentioned about the ball getting to ground, but even at times in that first half, the Bulldogs outnumbered us by tenfold at ground level, and they were able to get that ball moving forward pretty quickly and easily as a result. So that was, I guess, another consequence of having so many of our tools going up. It's that, yes, the ball may have been brought to ground or something of the like, but it didn't mean that we were able to get clean possession as a result. So some things to work on, that's for sure. But as you mentioned, Jack, keen to hear what the fans had to say about that one. Anything else to bring up from our Marvel Stadium encounter on Friday night?
Yeah, I think we just need to give a quick shout out to Darcy Cameron. He kept Tim English very honest, I thought, and that was always going to be a crucial matchup. So well done to Darcy Cameron. Probably not having the season that we loved him for in front of goals compared to last season, but absolutely serviceable and doing what a good ruck does, just keeping his opponent quiet and giving us first access where possible. And then, of course, we need to have a quick chat about WHE.
Yes,
and the unfortunate hand injury, Nico. So I'm not sure if we've had scans confirm
surgery. He's booked for surgery, so he's going to miss at least the next month of action, and then we'll assess from there. Now, fortunately, Steele Sidebottom looks ready to go, and he can be a like-for-like replacement. But still, Hoskinelli, well, just about wing.
Steele for
on the wing.
Steele for Will Hoskinelli.
Hoskinelli. Oh, maybe close enough. You don't think it's like?
I think it's a bit like having the BMW ready to go, but then you get the Range Rover coming into the side, Nico. That's probably the best way I'd put it.
Okay.
So.
I'll make that what you will. Go on.
Yeah, I feel like Hoskin Elliott's marking ability sort of separates him from Steele a little bit. Not separates him in terms of better, but just like maybe that's one thing that he brings that Steele. Yeah, I can't remember ever Steele flying on top of someone's shoulders and taking a huge mark overhead. But no, it's the timing of it has bad as it is for Will, it's good that we've got Steele in the waiting, ready to go. So yeah,
it's poor for Hoskin because he had been playing pretty decent football up until that injury as well. He had a bit of a rejuvenation period over the last fortnight or so. So yeah, the timing for Hoskin Elliott's sake, unfortunately, doesn't work out, but allows others to have an opportunity.
So in the mix for finals, we think.
I think the last game he was going to be unavailable for may have been, I think it was around 21, 22. That's going to be another selection conundrum we're going to have to talk about.
Was it when he got tackled? Is that?
I don't know, because all I heard was that at half time he'd been subbed off, and then that was the end of it.
Geez, Bianco looked he hadn't played much footy at senior level this year, didn't he?
Just didn't really adapt to the style of the game at the time.
Especially, it was a hot footy, no doubt.
In that third quarter, he probably came in at a time where we were pretty eager to turn things around, pressure rating high. Yeah, it didn't look like he suited well.
I wanted to also highlight before we move on from the Bulldogs game, Beau McCreary, especially that goal right on half time where he's able to sort of handball it to himself and run onto it.
Jamie Elliott, what should have been 50. Yep.
Yes,
oh,
true.
God.
Yeah, anyway.
Sorry.
But I feel like stuff like that, moments like that have summed up Beau's career to date. You know, it might not always be his day, whether it's a tackle or a piece of individual brilliance. It just, stuff like that. Bobby Hill as well, who, didn't hit the scoreboard in terms of goals, but I thought he was extremely important in terms of run and dash as well. So, those boys are playing a really, really vital role in this side at the moment.
Absolutely. Let's get to our votes from the weekend. I've collated all of the ones from round 17 from our fans. I can tell you there's just one quiet name that's just managed to get top votes this week again, Nick Dacos. He now incredibly has a 47 vote lead in our fan award from our next best, which is Jordan De Goey. So incredible to think, particularly with De Goey that hasn't played in the last 4 weeks. He's still managed to find himself in second. So the gap between second and fourth is 10 votes. Yet Dacos has a 47 vote lead.
Will they cancel the Copeland?
Might not be worth hitting, make their way.
What's the runner-up trophy called for the Copeland trophy? They just made it call the night that.
Is it the Jock McHale?
Potential.
That's the goal.
JJ.
Is that the goal kicking on the?
I'm gonna have a look. Anyway, in the meantime, what are your votes?
20 questions, Nick.
Yeah, now I'm under pressure. Jack, what are your votes?
So I'm being a bit of a coward. I originally gave one to Tom Mitchell, but his ended up being stiff because.
Did I talk you out of it?
You did, Nico. Look, on Tommy Mitchell, he really does. There's a passage of play right at the start of the fourth term there where sort of a half 50-50 ball. He managed to get his boot on it, clearance, Lipinski mark and goal. And I think he just does this right across games, the whole season. Those kicks and those clearances
always
forward
there.
Are just absolute gold. And as Marcus just said, he always seems to get himself on the end of them. He's been huge for us. So he's very stiff, just misses out, as is Pendles. Giving my one to Jamie Elliott, been in ripper form since having that slight off period with his shoulder injury. 2 to Isaac Quainer for reasons we spoke on. And 3, Nick Dacos.
Beautiful. Marcus?
One for, could we start calling him Sir Scott Pendlebury now that he's...
Might as well. That's the only thing that's missing from his resume.
Yeah, exactly right. If Eddie had his way, he'd already be knighted, I reckon.
Yep.
Yeah, one to Pendles, purely for that moment. It was just, again, something to savour, seeing the fans go up and standing ovation for getting a kick on the half-back flank. Not too sure too many players can say they've done that, Jack, so that was absolute beautiful moment. We'll reflect on that one at the end of this season. 2 votes went to IQ for an astonishing game. Continues to grow week to week, and we're really excited about his All-Australian selection. And 3 votes to Nick Dacos.
Perfect.
Nick.
Jack and I were pretty much spot on again this week. Jamie Elliott with the 1, IQ with the 2. Nick Dacos, what more can be said, gets 3. The RT Rush Trophy is second place in the Copeland night.
Thank you.
So that's what we'll be calling it for the rest of the season because... As we've mentioned, Nick Dacos is a clear winner. But we've still got plenty more to discuss on the other side. Big AskPiesNation coming up. Guess a crowd winner and a VFL wrap. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the PiesNation podcast. Where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. We've got a big AskPiesNation for you. So thanks to everyone that got involved on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, everywhere. We still continue to be there. AskPiesNation this week from Lukey was about the forward line structure considering what took place on Friday night. We spoke about it briefly in the previous segment, but it's time for the fans because I'll tell you what, boys, there's some big statements made by some of the fans. So thanks again for getting involved. brings great discussion across. So let's get underway. We'll start with Aiden on Instagram. He goes, Billy to the back line as the lockdown defender with Murphy. That frees Moore and Howie up to intercept. Darcy Cameron ruck with Cox, giving him a chock out. Checkers and McStay the key forwards, and Ash has to make way. Personally, I don't like his attitude. He hardly ever puts in a second effort, and he goes missing way too easily. So that's on Ash Johnson.
Who was that from?
Aiden on Instagram.
There you go. Bang goes Aiden. And Billy to the back line, was it?
Yep.
Yeah. And was Cox in the side?
Everyone in that side except Ash Johnson, pretty
Right.
much. Yes.
Yeah, it's very tall Collingwood
Ash
side,
the
isn't
sub.
Ash the sub. Oh, I don't know.
it? With four blokes in terms of you've got Frampton, McStay, Cox and Cameron. If they're on the field, one of them goes down. Surely the other one we could cover it. I don't
Switch
know
it
if you need to
between.
bring
I don't know. Yeah.
Ash on.
Not. I've never liked a tall sub. I don't know if that's just been me, but
He's not overly tall though.
plays tall though.
He's a third tall
Yeah.
type of player. But look, I was just putting it out there. Next one there, Nico.
Cody on Instagram, give Checkers, McStay, Johnson and Cox a go. Whoever doesn't perform out of those goes out next week. Frampton plays back over Murphy, in my opinion. So Frampton instead of Murphy in the back six was the call from Cody.
I think Murphy has shown he did get 4 or so kicked on him on the weekend, but he has shown that he's incredibly well organised back there. So I can't see him, based on form, a bit like Markov, at this point in time, coming out unless there's a huge reason to pull him out.
Zach Martin on Instagram, Ash proved that when he's on, and he should be there. Such sticky hands and a reliable kick for goal. Got to keep him in. McStay is a tricky one. We honestly don't need him unless we come across a Melbourne or a Brisbane with their quality in tools with their intercept marks. Frampton, Cox and Cameron stay in the team no matter what, in my opinion.
Just to that comment, when Ash is on, he's on. What do we make of his game on Friday night? He kicked 3 goals. 2 of them you could say were by AFL standard relatively easy. Joe the Goose, I think, is the term you've used before. Marcus
Very
over
good,
the
Jack.
back, got Mark on the goal line type areas. That's not taking anything away from Ash, but to be honest, I'm not too sure. I tend to agree a little bit with the statement made by Aiden. I think a bit before, you don't really get a lot of second efforts from Ash on the defensive side, and I think it really hurts us going the other way, especially with the way modern footy's played, slingshotting off the halfback. You need all your forwards to be doing their bit on both ends.
General 90s on Instagram. Kruger has been playing well at VFL level. When back from concussion protocols, he might be a chance after another run in the VFL. So again, he's been that forgotten person. But are you happy to put a Kruger in over a Johnson or a McStay or any other of those tools that are currently in the side?
Look, Kruger's just too much of a liability with his potential injury concerns. Whenever he goes up for the contest, I hold my breath for Nathan Kruger, just hoping he doesn't get injured. I mean, he got concussed. He should have taken Mark of the Year in the VFL against Frankston. I don't know if you saw that, Nick.
Yes,
but he does some miraculous things, and I still think he's got an exciting career ahead of him. But with these names coming back into the team, he's unlikely.
TJS on Instagram. Cameron and Cox stay for me. Frampton is a backup for the defence and ruck, so he makes way. And Johnson and McStay stay in. Not sure we can have both. Great position to be in.
Frampton out.
So
was it?
Frampton is a backup for the back and the ruck, so he makes way. So I'm judging by that Frampton doesn't come into this team, according to TJS.
Wow, that's going to be a huge one later in the season. There's going to be that you can almost read the Herald Sun article right now, like in terms of Billy Frampton being played and then the opposition potentially having a better run on us because we had too many tools. But based on evidence, like we're making it work. So it's unconventional, but
I think we're getting to the point where one of them has to miss out, Nico. You can't you can't play all of them, obviously. Otherwise, you're too tall. You leave yourself too open on the defensive side. For mine, this pains me to say because I've been a massive fan of him for ages, but when you're weighing up versatility, I think Frampton's versatility over what he can do as it playing a forward role, but if we need him to go back, he can play a lockdown role on a tall forward. We saw it do it against Tom Lynch against Richmond, earlier on this year. Can Mason Cox do the same role? That's the question that I think we need to start asking. What benefits. I sort of joked off there, comparing the pair, industry super fun type areas where, you've got to see what each player can bring. And I think Billy at the moment, I feel safer in the side knowing that if he's not going so well at forward and the opposition are, that we can throw him back and he can play a role for us, and I'm not sure Mason can.
So Metalcore Magpie agrees with you. He says, love Cox, but he's had a quiet patch. Might be worth dropping him for McStay for a few weeks at least. But then Jen also agrees with TJS's comment from Instagram and says, I'd suggest how we started the year is our preferred structure. 2 rucks plus Checkers and McStay. Frampton isn't ahead of those up forward, and how do you fit him down back with everybody else there? Does it depend on who we are playing, or does someone like Markov end up as a sub?
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that who we're playing factor coming into it for sure. For sure.
LD Denning on Twitter, Johnson is a liability in big games, unfortunately. He's the first one to go out of the above-mentioned players. So that's someone there. And then we've got conflicting views on McStay. So Daniel says, everyone that is saying no to McStay have absolutely no idea. McRae and Leopard did not bring him to play twos. If he's fit and he's right to go, he's a lock. But then you've got Nick who says McStay needs to show us something. Until then, he's just a theory.
Well, I've got no idea, Nico, because I agree. I agree with Nick. I think Dan McStay has to come back into this side. Hopefully it comes back through a VFL period in terms of fitness and match fitness type areas. But I haven't been blown away with Dan McStay since being at Collingwood. I know he's missed a lot of footy, but he was one of those ones I was a little bit frustrated by in the first sort of 5 to 6 games of the year. I think he needed to give us more. So bring him in, but he doesn't get a second chance. It's because of the environment that we're in at the moment, with the amount of tall stocks we have, with the form that they're in. Because we wouldn't be having these conversations if only 2 of them were in good form, because all of them have played some good footy at some stage throughout this year. So the pressure's going to be on there. If you get yourself in that side, you better perform. Otherwise, the bloke who's in the twos is going to be taking your spot the next week.
Fez Cat on Twitter, McStay has done absolutely nothing to say he's getting picked in the seniors. Cox, Johnson, Myercheck, but Cox is on shaky grounds at the moment. A couple more to wrap up. This is an interesting one here from Slick on Twitter. I'd drop Darcy Cameron and ruck Frampton with Checkers, McStay and Cox in the forward line. Cameron has been a bit low on production since coming back from injury and can't kick a goal accurately.
Okay. I don't think he's done enough to get dropped personally.
No. Yeah. I think he's still the number 1 ruckman.
Very competitive as a ruckman and goes through the game without letting his opponent get on top. So we've seen. Yeah. So, not worried about him coming out of the team. It's probably Coxie or Frampton that have to make way.
Jay Watt, I wouldn't be bringing in McStay based on his last performance. Needs to find some form in the twos first. Frampton can play down back. Another tall back would be good, but Fly doesn't seem to want to play him there. Darcy Cameron is the only lock. The rest is whoever is in form and not hurt. So that's the opposite view to say that Cameron is the 100% guaranteed person in there. So it just makes so much fascination, really. Margaret Jones, bring McStay in next to Myercheck ASAP. We need chemistry to develop between these two and Elliott over the next few games, so we are set for finals. Cox and Cameron ruck, Frampton backup defender, AJ to 1 to miss. And then I'll finish off with SJ Fox on Twitter, who says, I wouldn't change much from the weekend. Give Myercheck another week of rest. Same with Maynard, if not a perfect 100% healthy. McStay gets another week in the VFL to find some form. Probably side bottom for Hoskin and Elliott. That's it. The rest will take care of itself.
I think if Ash Johnson is... Are we expecting Dan McStay, realistically, him to play another week in the VFL and then potentially put his hand up for selection?
Well, I want to ask that question after we do the VFL report.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that I think Ash Johnson's form compared to Dan McStay's form in twos really could be a deciding factor, because despite his laziness, which hits me at times as well, Jacko, with Ash Johnson, he is mercurial and he can bob up and change the shape of the game very quickly. And I think having players in your team like that's really important, so you don't stay boring.
Isn't that an interesting point, though, as well, that they're the two players that sort of are like swapping around in terms of depending on their form, like Marcus have said, because they're two very different players as well. As Marcus just said as well, like Ash Johnson, very mercurial. Dan McStay, on the other hand, is meant to be this big, bustling, tall forward, kicking 30, 40 goals a year when he's in the side, hopefully, in years to come. But I'd like to see a game before September that we just say to Dan McStay, there's your square, there's your forward 50. Everyone clear out and stick it down his throat 25 out of 26 times.
Yeah.
And see how you go. Sort of a bit of a baptism of fire.
And just coming back to Johnson, let's not forget he rucked for quite a few games when we had absolutely no stocks to pick from as a backup ruckman. And I don't think he was terrible. I thought he was serviceable in the middle. So when he gets that opportunity to go up the ground, I think he took it. And it's important to consider that because not that McStay got much opportunity in the ruck. I think he had one game against Brizzy and then got injured against the Saints, but it's something to remember despite that lack of forward line pressure at times from Ash.
Certainly is. So there's AskPiesNation for another week. Really good session there, and I'm glad that the fans got involved too because it made for some brilliant discussion. So be sure to get involved as you can with AskPiesNation, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. I'm going to guess the crowd just for a minute because I want to go straight into the VFL report, judging off the conversation we've just had. So, Marcus, if I haven't thrown you off guard too much, let's go straight to the VFL report.
Very hard to do that, Nico.
Oh, righto. Yeah.
Unless we're talking about Reef McInnes and Bo McCreary.
That's it, yep.
Yeah, look, the Pies, I actually got to catch the tail end of this on the telly, actually on the computer it was. But, look, we should have got over the line in this game. It was almost an opposite affair to what happened in the last quarter with the ones, and the Dogs got up to a huge lead in that first and then second term, but we managed to claw our way back, Nico. And unfortunately, Sam Darcy?
Yeah, Sam Darcy,
Yep, took over late in that game and absolutely blitzed us, unfortunately, all around the ground. So I think Rory Lobb is going to be thinking carefully about his next couple of games for the Dogs. But look, it was disappointing. It was a disappointing finish to the match. Huge from Finn McRae once again. He just cannot get into the midfield. We'll have to really start thinking about other clubs looking at him in the next season or two, Nico. I don't know if he's contracted, but he was enormous. Harvey Harrison kicked some absolute fantastic snaps in that second half as well. So he went into the twos, but certainly could come back in if there's an injury to a small forward. Jack Ginnivan was better, once again, showing a little bit of form, but needs to do a lot more. Trey Ruskell I thought was very good as well, but let's get over to the Surge to take us through what went wrong with that 20-point loss.
Pies' second half was really good, but giving up a 36-point lead was just a bit too much in the end. Tough but exciting game. Numerous lead changes until the Dogs pulled away late. Pressure in second half was better, but poor decisions created turnovers, resulting in goals. McRae and Josh Carmichael battled hard all day. Guinea, one of the better games he's played, kicked 2 goals, worked very hard around the ground. Harvey Harrison kicked 3 in the second half, emerging as a bit of a goal sneak. Neville Jetta, Trey Rusco, good in defence, even though they were under the pump most game. Reef McInnes was okay. Dan McStay, very poor, well beaten by Josh Bruce.
That was highlighted.
And the bye next week.
Yes. So, look, again, hearing that off the back of our previous conversation, finishing on McStay there. I mean, if he comes out and kicks 5 goals, we're speaking differently in AskPiesNation, aren't we? But with that, he's got some work to do, I think, Nico.
Yeah, certainly
maybe what I was saying before about him, because I didn't know that. So maybe what I was saying about him coming back in the side, maybe it changes too. He's got to prove himself before he does come back in. And you just leave it how it is.
Yeah, 5 touches. He had 1 behind and I think just 1 mark as well for the whole day. So.
And it didn't look fit. It didn't look like he was. I was literally had McStay watch going on as I was watching this game of football, and he just wasn't really leading up at the ball. So I don't know if there was a bit of just get through, mate. Don't worry too much about your impact. But the point I was trying to make about form is that if he has a blinder this week, do you bring him back in to go to South Australia against a side we could potentially play in a grand final against, knowing that he's who you would probably pick based on paper, or do you stick with your form and what's been working in reality? Bearing in mind he did play in the 70-plus point win earlier in the year.
Now, see, this is a tough one because you're coming up against
Wrap
a Freo side.
Okay?
Yeah, great. No, great question.
It's like that Goodwill Hunting bloody maths equation on the chalkboard there. It's impossible.
Algebra for you there, Jacko.
We played the Dockers this week who haven't been in great form, as we know. I mean, if you're losing the carton by that much. Anyway, so, yeah, does it become a case of Is this a little mini version of Ben Reid preliminary final areas where you play him just because you know you're going to play him the next week?
I'm still frustrated Travis Varco didn't get a look in that game.
Don't bring it up. You didn't want to be on the pod that day, Jack. Yeah, so it is a fascinating case because do you play McStay in this Freo game, considering the game he had in the VFL, knowing that this is a player that you want likely in your 22 for the rest of the season, or do you wait and then do you not play him against Port, knowing that, potentially will be in good form again coming in, but is it too late then to bring him in afterwards? And because there's no one else to drop from that forward line, does it depend on the Port result? There's just too many equations here.
But you got to ask yourself your question there. What's getting Dan McStay in the team? Is it his form, or is it the fact that we're paying him $700,000 a year, $700,000 a year on a long-term deal, and he was a big recruit over the summer? What are we doing here? We putting footballers out there that are in form, or we're putting footballers out there that are getting paid.
Well, that was one of the comments because they were like, well, Flying Leopard didn't go and recruit him just for fun to play in the twos. He has to be playing senior football, but he creates that conundrum. We did this with Chris Mayne when he came in. We didn't mind playing him in the VFL, even when his form wasn't too great. Fortunately, he was able to turn that around. So is this just going to be one of those years for McStay where it just didn't quite work out for him and he just resets for 2024?
And Chris Mayne, to draw that comparison, well done there, Nick, ended up having quite a nice sort of twilight to his career at the Pies, despite Bucks. I don't know how you frame this, Nico, but not playing him
pretty much
on big money. I think literally the same money as what
very similar, yeah.
McStay's come over to the Pies for. So it's fascinating. Really is a selection headache that we do not loathe because we are in good form.
One thing we have overlooked from all of this is what I've just realised. The VFL have the bye this week. You won't get a McStay game in the VFL. So now what do you do?
Dun, 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 dun.
Also, I feel like I'm smacking him from pillar to post here, McStay, but it doesn't help that he hasn't played footy since, we go way back to
just
April.
April
even. So, he's missed a lot of footy. Fitness will be down. Skills, he hasn't been able to touch a footy because of his the nature of his injury being in the finger.
No hits all year when players are just getting like finals ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
huge.
very quick then, before we move on to our guest the crowd. If Mychek is fit, do you play McStay, yes or no?
For this week?
Yeah.
No.
Jack?
No.
If Mychek isn't fit, do you play McStay this week, yes or no?
No.
Yes, and I think it's stiff for Ash to come out, but really, if Freo dish up what they dished up against Carlton at home, I mean, I hate saying this because it usually always backfires, but this is a game we should win, so it might not be a bad week to bring McStay in because we've got the bye. The bye changes this completely. You got to remember also, Ash Johnson has kicked 3 goals on Friday night, but he wouldn't have been in the side if Mychek didn't get injured after having a bit of a dirty day down in Frankston, as we all saw on the socials. It's such a difficult one.
Yeah,
bring him in, clear the 50 out, and there's your experiment.
All right, there's the call from Jack. Shout out to the VFLW girls for winning their qualifying final over Port Melbourne on the weekend. Big 26-point winners for them. So they moved to. It's a very strange system, this top 6 in the VFLW, because they now play Essendon, who were a higher-ranked elimination final winner, but Port Melbourne, who lost a qualifying final, played the other elimination final winner. So it becomes a bit of a confusing one for me. But nonetheless, Pies play Essendon at Vic Park this Saturday afternoon before the Ben's game, of course. So if you have the chance to swing by beforehand, it'd be great to see the Pies hopefully get that win and have another chance to take on the reigning premiers.
Do you have a time there, Nico?
1 p.m. So it's going to be a bit of a squeeze, but
tight one.
A little first quarter action, then make your way to the G might not be a bad idea. So that's my little suggestion. Anyway, let's get to our guest, the crowd competition winner. First of all, shout out to the 2 people that got the margin correct of 12 points. Mel B on Twitter. I don't think that's Spice Girl Mel B. If it is, great to know that you're a Pies fan. The other one is Brooke Newcomb on Instagram, who also said Pies by 12. So shout out to those 2 for getting one. Let's get the headphones on because we're about to speak to our next guest, the crowd competition winner, who's actually joining us for a second time after getting on in 2022. His name is Jacob. He was 18 people off the crowd. So shout out to him. Speaking of the crowd, we mentioned off air, Jack, disappointing that the sellout that was mentioned by everyone else
planes
didn't eventuate. No planes this time.
The
Buses?
AFL, it's not for the first time, Nico. The AFL needs to do some sort of better buyback system of your tickets, even for members who have seats at the games every week. Clubs need to get in contact with those members. Are you coming? If not, let us know. We'll refund you. It doesn't have to be the full amount, but we'll refund you an XYZ amount and then sell the ticket to someone else. Because not that I'm a Collingwood member, and that's it. But I had mates message me this week, can you get me a guest pass? Can you do this? And you can't. There was at least 3 or 4 of them wanting to take a big group, and you're meant to be a sellout, and they're not selling any more tickets, and 42,000 people rock up. That leaves 8,000 people that could have come instead.
So this is not corporate tickets. It's just people didn't buy the tickets.
Yeah, or didn't rock up
Right.
after getting the tickets or having seats there already that they weren't using.
I think that's the big one because I'm a Legends member, so we get an away seat at Marvel, and I've noticed on Friday night that there were a lot of empty seats around us. So Nico spoke about it off air. Marvel's not
We don't like
favourite of the Collingwood
Just
army.
say it. We don't like Marvel.
But it's weird though because back when it was our home game against North Melbourne earlier in the year, I remember getting an email to see if I was going along that week. So they did it this week. I think it's just something that needs to be more consistent because there's nothing more frustrating. There's a lot of people who go to the footy week in, week out that miss out, and then the crowd comes up at 3/4 time. It's 42,000. You go, well, they could have gone.
Exactly right.
Anyway.
All right, well, we'll see if Jacob was one
Nice
of them.
Durant.
It's part of, yes, definitely a mini Durant, but let's give Jacob a call and have a chat to him once again.
Hello, Jacob speaking.
G'day, Jacob. Nicholas here from the Pies Nation podcast, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Great to have you on for the second time after guessing the crowd closest once again. So congratulations for getting on for another episode of the Pies Nation podcast. Straight off the bat, Jacob, were you there on Friday night to witness us get another victory and stay on top of the ladder?
No, I wasn't.
No, you weren't. That's all right. Where were you watching from?
At home with my wife and daughter.
Oh, there you go. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Jacob. Marcus here. Thanks for joining us once again. Can you remind us, who did you pick the win against when you came on the first time, mate?
Oh, God, it was a year ago. It was, I think it was like round 5.
Round 5. Was it Anzac?
Could it have been an Anzac Day?
It wasn't an Anzac win, was it?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Maybe it was a we're going to get Jack to look up the actual game, but that interesting.
I was going to, because Nick usually remembers these sorts of things.
No, I am usually
certainly
pretty
don't.
good, but not this time.
Jacob can't remember either, so
Nah,
it's
it's actually my third one in a year. So
Third one, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well,
the hat trick.
I might have to get your number saved here, Jacob. So they get us right.
Round 5, pretty forgettable game, although I thought the Pies were pretty good. Up at the Gabba against Brisbane, lost by 7 points.
No good. No good.
Yeah. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on again, mate. Always good to have our Pies Nation guests on. Look, we usually ask for a Collingwood highlight, but I think I will ask for a Collingwood highlight, but maybe a bit of a personal highlight since round 5 last year. What have you been up to off-field away from footy, or even a footy highlight that you'd like to share with everyone?
Oh, good question. Well, personal, heading overseas with my 3-year-old for the first time to Italy
Nice.
in a month. So
Beautiful.
that's exciting. But from a footy standpoint, it's just watching the Pies playing the best footy that I can remember in 33 years. So it's been pretty spectacular.
Beautiful. No, we're all pretty excited, and if you do listen week to week, we're probably getting a little bit arrogant this time of year, to be honest
what are
with
you
you,
talking about?
with all of these wins, Jacob. But
Yeah.
look, we like to shine a light on Nick Dacos for a very good reason. He deserves all of the airtime that he gets. Just wanted to get you to reflect quickly on the growth you've seen in his game since we last had you on the pod.
It's been phenomenal. Like it's funny enough. He's actually my most latest jersey number on the back of my jersey. That's how much
Beautiful.
I think he's an incredible young kid. He's just in his second year. You honestly good chance at the Brownlow.
Yes.
Norm Smith hopefully as well.
Oh, there.
Very nice. Keep going.
Yeah. No, that's good. We get all those awards, hopefully. You mentioned that you got Dakes on the back of your jumper. So do you want to run through your collection then of numbers that you've got on jumpers over the years, and what are some of your most fondest ones, or maybe even some of your more unique ones that maybe people wouldn't usually get?
So currently, latest is Dacos. I got more the last year's Anzac Day.
Yep.
Nathan Cox for Indigenous one. So I know he gets a lot of shit, but he's one of my favourite players. I love his story.
Nice.
And then Bucks got Rocker as well.
Which one, mate?
Anthony.
Yeah, beautiful.
Pebbles. Very nice.
But yeah, that's it. And then I reckon about 15 different other ones, but just with no numbers.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, nice. I'm going to go off topic, Nico. Whereabouts in Italy are you going, mate? It's a lovely part of the world. My partner Chantal was there last year. Have you got any destination spots booked in for that trip?
So we're going to Rome, going up to Florence, Bari, Sicily, Chianti. Where else?
You're not going in September, I hope?
August.
Oh,
So
nice.
Just in time to come back.
I'll be back for finals.
Have a nice finals tan, Marcus.
Yeah, very good, very good. Where's your family from, Nico?
We're Calabrese, so southern Italy. So not quite a destination point for tourists to head to, but not a bad little place in Italy. Near the heel of Italy. You know, it's shaped like a boot.
Yes.
Yes. So around the heel area. To look out for.
Near the heel, very good.
Just in case you were wondering if anyone was keen to visit there and you want to swing past Jacob, that'd be nice. Anyway, Jacob, before we do let you go, how confident are you that we can get over the line and win the premiership this year, mate?
I'm trying to keep I've seen 4 losing grand finals, so I'm trying to keep the lid on, but it's the most confident I've felt in a long time. So
that's a good sign then. I'm pretty happy to hear that. Must mean we're doing pretty good things. Jacob, thanks for coming on for a third time, mate. Who knows? We might hear from you again before we win the Premiership Cup at the end of the year. Thanks for coming on and have fun in Italy.
Happy travels.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Jacob.
There you go. That was Jacob as part of our Guess the Crowd competition. That could be you if you guessed the crowd closest. Be sure to keep an eye out for the game day post that Lukey makes in the lead up. Guess your crowd, and if you are closest to the pin, you'll be joining us as part of our Guess the Crowd competition.
Calabrese, also a very good pizza, Nico. Don't know if that's got anything to...
Yeah,
Derek's just laughed, so that must have been good material, but seriously...
Yeah, no, they're pretty good pizza. I didn't know that was our main quality, the Calabrese people, but I'll take it.
I think Jacob also has done a very good job of highlighting probably how a lot of Collingwood supporters feel when they're asked how confident they are about winning the premiership. It breaks my heart when you hear Collingwood supporters, especially ones like Jacob who've been supporting the club for over 30 years. You know, have been to 4 losing grand finals. I mean, that really is our story a little bit there. I think I've said before we could go 24-0, win
Not
3
this year.
finals games, and I still wouldn't be confident in the grand final. But yeah, maybe under Fly we've got something different brewing.
Before we wrap up this week's episode, it's been a great episode, I must say. So be sure you get involved with everything at Pies Nation, social media-wise. Buy some merch. We've got some great merch going on. Dacos is on fire, as you can see from Jack there. So be sure to get in touch. More side bottom. This man's coming back this week, so pumped to see him return onto the field. 300 plus 1, I think. So
get a bit of duct tape.
Yep, just chuck the one there. Beautiful.
Yes, please.
So we've got the Dockers Saturday afternoon, 1:45 at the MCG. Give us your Monday headline to wrap up, starting with Marcus.
Oh, God, there's a temptation to go down the mixed day train line.
I was waiting
right
for someone
now.
to bring that up. Yep.
No, I'll let that seed for Jacko. But Monday headline is Pies get the job done convincingly by, I'm going to go tip a margin for my headline, by 46 points.
Oh, okay.
Mason Cox to kick 3.
Wow. Big statement from Coxie.
That's hard.
All right.
I went with Coxie for the big statement last week. Didn't quite pay off. I don't want to go down the McStay route because we don't know if he's going to be playing, of course, or not. I feel like Bobby Hill. I know we've had Ash Johnson Mark of the Year already, and it's a very good call from Marcus. But King's birthday took a massive leap, just couldn't quite clunk it. He gets a nice run and jump at it. He's been very, very exciting over the past few weeks. So I won't go Mark of the Year because I don't want to take that away from Marcus, because I think that'll be a great highlight come the end of the year if we've picked that so early. But Bobby Hill to take an absolute screamer, Nico. That'll be the photo on the front of the Herald Sun come Sunday morning.
I don't mind that one bit, to be honest. That would be very impressive. I'm going to go very obnoxious, or maybe not obnoxious, but we mentioned Josh Dacos before on the pod and how terrific he's been playing his footy. Hopefully he can get a bit more midfield time, and if we can see him in the guts and they want to experiment with it a little bit more, I reckon he has 30 plus, and the Pies get a big win. So Dacos to get 30 plus. The other Dacos probably gets about 40 anyway.
The other Dacos.
We'll get a, yeah, just the other Dacos. We'll get a massive win against the Dockers. Pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Hope so. Let's not get too cocky though. It's been very common.
Lid's
You
very
keep
much
winning,
on.
your head keeps getting bigger and the lid gets looser. And
Get the job done.
That's how we like to do it here, that's
Jesus.
for sure. That's all we've got time for on this week's edition. Jack and Marcus, thanks for coming on.
beautiful episode. Thank you, boys.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Nico.
I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching to the Pies Nation podcast, where the Pies are hot and the drinks are cold.